my name is Aubriana, and for those of you who don't know, October is National Dysautonomia Awareness Month. Dysautonomia is a condition that I struggle with, and I have been struggling with for years. It has really taken a toll in my life, and a lot of people don't know about it. And so in honor of Dysautonomia Awareness Month, I thought I would share my story and, how I came to, get diagnosed and how I got where I am today. So let's get into it. So first things first, what is dysautonomia? So dysautonomia is the dysfunction of the autonomic system, and the autonomic system controls things such as your heart rate, blood pressure, and temperature regulation. And when your autonomic system isn't working properly, that throws everything out of whack. So dysautonomia is kind of an umbrella term, meaning there's multiple conditions that fall under it. And the specific condition that I have is POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And POTS is characterized as an increase in heart rate of 40 beats per minute or more upon standing. And POTS usually comes with dizziness, fainting, blurry vision, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, nausea, being cold or being too hot, things like that. POTS affects everyone differently, and not everyone passes out. In November of 2019, I got diagnosed with an eating disorder commonly known as anorexia nervosa, and I struggled with, not getting enough calories in my body and restricting my food intake as well as over-exercising, and that ended up with me in the hospital for 2 weeks under eating disorder protocols. And in the hospital, I got diagnosed with bradycardia, which is a slow heart rate. I haven't been nourishing my body enough, and so my heart was slowing down. My period had stopped. It wasn't a good time in my life. We finally got out of the hospital, and I knew it was going to be a long journey ahead of me, but I was prepared to do it, but never did I expect what was about to hit me. They told us that we should make an appointment with cardiology to, just make sure everything's okay with my heart because of the bradycardia. We went there to cardiology, and he was really well versed on eating disorders. He said his daughter was actually struggling with one as well as self-harm, and so he knew my situation, and he said that it's not uncommon for our bodies to kind of shut down during this time, and he said, just make sure you keep an eye on it. If anything changes, call me. Make sure you try and get back into your regular eating habits. And he wished me luck pretty much. Within 2 weeks, I went from extreme bradycardia to extreme tachycardia and dizziness and awful fatigue. It was horrible. My heart rate was hitting 150, 160 in the morning when I stood up. And every time I stood up, I got super dizzy, and I was so tired, and it just wasn't fun. I, assume, me and my mom both assumed that this is normal, like my body's still getting into the habit of all this nutrition. My body's really in a funk right now. This will kind of blow over. About a week later, my heart rate didn't go down. I was feeling worse and worse, and I was sick, getting sicker and sicker by the day. And so we made an appointment with cardiology, and we went to cardiology. He said, this is completely normal. Like, we expect this. Your body is in a hard state right now, and there's a lot going on. Just make sure that you're taking care of your body. You're drinking, you're eating as best as you can, you're getting good sleep, things like that. We waited about another 2 weeks, and I was progressively getting worse and worse. My heart rate was getting higher and higher every time I stood up. I was getting dizzier. I couldn't do anything. I was so fatigued. I was like walking upstairs, going to bed. Like, walking upstairs literally made me so tired that I would sleep for like 5 hours when I walked upstairs, and when I walked back downstairs, it made me so exhausted that I would go back to bed. on the couch, and I was just sleeping constantly. I was struggling so bad. I was in a really bad place. We went to cardiology for the third time, and at this third appointment, they did a poor man's tilt table test, and when I stood up, it jumped to 132. The weeks go by. I'm getting worse and worse. At this point, I'm starting to pass out a few times a week. And it's getting really scary. I can't stand, for long periods of time. I can't stand in the kitchen to wash dishes or make myself something to drink without, like, going into pre-syncope or passing out. I can't shower without passing out. My heart rate's getting into the 200s, and it's getting really, really scary. And they do another poor man's tilt table test, and this time my heart rate jumped 75 beats per minute, and he was pretty impressed by that. My therapist actually goes, "Have you heard of POTS?" She goes, "It really sounds like POTS." And I'm like, "What is POTS?" And she kind of explained it, and she explained to us that she actually has POTS. And she doesn't struggle with it as much anymore, but she gets, dizzy every now and then. It makes me so thankful that she said something to us, because I very well could have gone years and years, all these years, without having a diagnosis and figuring out what's wrong. So after my therapist said something, we went into cardiology and did another poor man's tilt table test, and my heart rate increased 85 beats per minute when I stood up. And the lady actually made me sit back down. I was supposed to be standing for about another 2 minutes, but she made me sit down sooner because she said I looked really pale, and I didn't look well, and she didn't want me to, pass out on the floor. It was that appointment that cardiology diagnosed me with POTS. And it honestly, I felt happy. It also felt like my world ended at that appointment. Like, I was so happy to finally have a diagnosis about what's going on. But once you get that diagnosis, it's like, this is real. Like, there's nothing that's gonna help this. You just have to learn to deal with it. Like, this is you now. Like, there's no going back. And that still is really hard for me to understand and accept. So of course, after all this, we do all of our research, and my mom is booking appointments with all these specialists, and time's going by and I'm not getting any better. Cardiology is wanting me to try all these new medicines. We tried salt pills, fludrocortisone, midodrine, ivabradine, beta blocker. We tried liquid IV, LMNT, Gatorade, all this stuff that they say to do, and nothing helps. At this point, I'm getting worse. Life was really hard for me then, but I am so grateful for my therapist who was there for me this whole time. When my doctors and my friends weren't. And it really meant a lot. Fast forward about a year later, I'm still struggling really, really bad. Every day is a battle. And at this point, I am in 8th grade now, and 8th grade year was really rough. This was right after my eating disorder, right after my diagnosis with POTS. I was struggling with anxiety and depression. And it was a lot like when you start a new year of school, it's like a new year, new me kind of thing. And you know, you're excited for this year, and you're excited, you know, that how you've changed over summer. Maybe you've cut your hair, or maybe you got some new clothes, maybe you got a piercing. You know, you're excited to show off what's new about you when you get back to school. But especially because it was during COVID, so we were all virtual during 7th grade, and I was really scared. I didn't know what people would think of me, so I didn't tell anyone. It was embarrassing. I didn't know what people would think if I told them that I was chronically ill and disabled, and I wasn't the same. I pretty much faked it till I made it. Most of 8th grade year until I ended up needing to bring a walker to school. And that is when the questions came in the comments. First time I brought my walker to school, someone says, "My grandpa has the exact same one." Of course, people walking up to me bluntly asking, "What's wrong with you? Why do you need that?" I never told anyone about this because I was humiliated. A substitute actually stopped class when I walked in, and he looked me up and down and he said, "Why do you have that walker? You look fine. You don't need that walker." Everyone was just staring at me. It was humiliating. And I said, "Because it helps me." And he rolled his eyes and said, "Okay, go sit down." And I felt very violated that he would ask me such really invasive questions like that in front of everyone. And it was really hard for me to wrap my head around the idea of needing help. My 8th grade teachers and the school overall was absolutely amazing. And towards 8th grade year, people knew something was wrong with me. They didn't know what, but they knew something was wrong. And that's when my friends left. I had a really big friend group, and once I started bringing that walker to school, they were out of there. They didn't want nothing to do with it. And I think that was probably one of the hardest things about this, was that my friends couldn't accept me for who I was now. And it was very isolating that just because there's something wrong with you, your friends just abandoned you because they didn't want to deal with it, and they didn't want to be around someone who needed a walker. And it was really disheartening. And it's really isolating. But my family and, you know, some of my really good friends, you know, who I'm so grateful for those who have stayed by my side through all this. And I'm so grateful for them fighting with me and not abandoning me. And I couldn't be more thankful for the amazing support group I have in my life, and it just means a lot to me. We went to Mayo Clinic, and they did a formal, like, actual tilt table test. And he looked at me as soon as I walked in the room. He looked at my leg, like my legs were marbly, they were pooling, my blood was pooling, and he said, I'm not going to be surprised if you have some kind of autonomic dysfunction. And I did the telltale test, and it was awful. When we went back the next day, he basically said, yep, you have POTS. Like, we already knew that. We were hoping for some more context, I guess. Like, we already knew we had POTS. We had known that for a couple years. And he looked at me, he said, yep, you have POTS. And he basically wanted to change some vitamins around. And that's it. They wanted to take me out, take me off some vitamins, put me on some vitamins. They gave me a water bottle, said you're good to go. So Mayo Clinic was not helpful at all. But whatever. At this point, having a chronic illness, you kind of learn to accept that the doctors just aren't going to have anything. And at this point, like, if I pass out and hit my head and my family's like, we should probably go to the doctor or something, or the hospital, I'm like, no, they're not going to do anything. I'm fine. Like, you're just going to waste your money. They're not going to do anything. Like, I'm fine. So we were really looking forward to Mayo Clinic, and they didn't really have any answers for us, which was discouraging. At this point, I had started high school, and I quickly went from having to use a walker to having to use a wheelchair. The school is not accommodating at all. My doctors are completely against me being in a wheelchair because POTS is, you gotta walk, you gotta exercise, you gotta strengthen your legs, get your muscles working, you gotta get those leg muscles built so it can pump your blood back. And the school, once they found out I was a fall risk, basically said, you can't come to school. Like, we don't want you in here if you're not in a wheelchair. They took away my transportation because that was dangerous for me to be getting on and off the bus. If I'm a fall risk and it's dangerous, and my mom has to pick me up every day because they won't provide transportation, and it's awful. And high school has been hard. It's really challenging in itself, let alone dealing with a chronic illness. We're about we're a little over a semester into the school year, and it has been one heck of a journey. I will say that, and all I can do is smile and laugh about it because there's nothing else you can do about it. Just gotta smile through the tears. And this is kind of where I leave off. I did not include, the process of me training my dog to become my service dog. I might make another video about that soon. However, Cedar is hopefully going to be joining me either at the end of freshman year or the beginning of sophomore year. And hopefully she'll join me at high school and being able to help me so I can stay out of the wheelchair and be more safe and independent throughout the school day. For those of you who are still here, I know that was a lot and I got a little emotional, and I'm sorry I did. It has been a crazy journey, and I know a lot of people feel like there's no hope sometimes. Like, a lot of people on my channel tell me that doctors aren't cooperating and listening. They've been waiting years for a diagnosis. They've been struggling with friends and family. And I sympathize and I completely understand what you're going through. And that's really the whole reason I started this channel, is for people to know that they're not alone in their struggles. They are not alone. There are other people going through the same thing. Like, we understand what you're going through. We know what you're going through. And instead of hating on each other and judging each other for our differences, and one's condition is worse than the other. I want my channel to be uplifting and inspiring to people. I want it to be a safe place where people feel like they won't be judged, and you know, they can speak about what they're going through without judge or hate being pushed towards them. Having a chronic illness is really hard, and it's really scary, it's really discouraging, and it's really isolating. But overall, it's been such a blessing. You might be thinking, a blessing? You're disabled, like, you have an incurable illness. How is it a blessing? Well, I will say one thing, it's brought me closer to God. No way I could have made it to this, or pushed through to this point in my life without him. He was there when my friends left me, and he never left my side, and he helped me keep fighting when I fell down and I couldn't get it back up. He gave me the strength, and he picked me up and carried me when I couldn't get up. It's given me an incredible bond with Cedar, my service dog. We have an unbreakable bond. I'm so blessed. It's built a stronger relationship with my family and my sister. It's given me the chance to meet some incredible people, incredible friends, and it's given me the chance to realize I am so strong. Like, it takes a lot to get up out of bed and get moving every day, and the fact that I have been doing that for the last few years just shows me how strong I am and how strong this has made me. Chronic illness does not break us, it only makes us stronger. Happy Dysautonomia Awareness Month, guys.